just to give you that framework of the design in terms of having a feeling as we work today, what we're doing, why we're doing it. Because for those of you who haven't done a lot of this, sometimes the activities can feel almost to be randomly chosen, and they're definitely not randomly chosen, but as you're participating, you may not feel the pattern. So the pattern is based on the word story, with a variation of spelling on the end. So the first part is the strategic intent. As Pietri said, there's a framework that says why we're doing this, and we'll start with that in a moment. The second part is transition. So because we're using not always fully embodied methodology, but there's an element of embodiment in everything that we're doing, when we walk in this room, we're not really in that space. We're thinking. We're thinking of everything that happened out on the road this morning, the catastrophe on the N1 with the piece of metal that can't be identified that's slashing tires. All these sort of things are in our heads. Plus, we generally live our lives predominantly in our heads. And for this work, for the methods, we want to be much more into ourselves as a whole being. So we do something to help us to transition to that space. But it's also transitioning us to a space of working. As Pietri said, we want to bring new stories out of our work. That happens in a space of open experimentation. And all sorts of different elements could be in that space, and slightly different approaches. But as a basket, that's where we're doing the work, the exploring of the situation, and new ways of dealing with it or approaching it, or even new ways of thinking within ourselves, our perceptions. And that's the main element. But if that is what you do and then walk out the room, you tend to lose touch with what you explored, what you uncovered, those stories that were coming out of the middle of Pietri's diagram. So to be able to stop and create some space to think what those experiences have been, we have a piece of reflection. And an advantage of knowing now in terms of the design that comes later is you don't need to worry about that when you're in the experimentation. You can just be in it, experience it, see where it goes for you, because you will stop and reflect on it. And then, what for me is the absolutely most important element, is to look at how this is going to integrate back into that world out there, the one we transitioned out of. Because otherwise it's just a fun time. But if it's going to integrate back into our lives, then it has some purpose for us. So that's where the stories come back out, and that's integration. So again, whilst you're busy, you don't need to have that double conversation in your head that's going, okay, that was interesting, how can you use that? That was interesting, where am I going to apply it? Just enjoy that open experimentation.